Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Those words cut straight to the heart of ambition, don't they? Because here's the uncomfortable truth: most of what holds us back isn't lack of opportunity or talent. It's the stories we tell ourselves, the distractions we entertain, and the discipline we fail to cultivate. Stoicism isn't just ancient philosophy gathering dust on a shelf. It's a battle-tested toolkit for demolishing limitations, the kind that keeps you stuck in cycles of frustration and unrealized potential. Think about your own life for a second. What's the one obstacle you've been blaming for why you haven't reached that next level? What if the real barrier wasn't out there in the world, but in how you've been framing the challenge itself? Today, we're tearing down those mental walls with razor-sharp Stoic tactics: resilience to outlast setbacks, focus to silence the noise, and self-discipline to turn ambition into action. Because the difference between who you are and who you could be isn't time, luck, or circumstance. It's what you do with the mind you already have. Stoicism teaches us to focus only on what we can control, a principle that cuts through the noise of modern ambition like a scalpel. Ever notice how much energy we waste worrying about outcomes, opinions, or circumstances that aren't ours to command? The Stoics called this the dichotomy of control, a simple but radical idea. Some things are up to us and everything else isn't. Epictetus put it bluntly: make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. Take career growth, for example. You can control your effort, your preparation, and how you respond to setbacks, but you can't force a promotion, a hiring manager's bias, or market conditions. The moment you obsess over the uncontrollable, you hand over your power. Here's the practice. Next time stress hits, say, before a big presentation, pause and ask, what part of this is truly mine to influence? Your preparation? Yes, the audience's reaction? No. That shift in focus doesn't just reduce anxiety, it frees you to act where it matters. So think about your own ambitions. Where have you been pouring energy into things outside your control? And what could change if you redirected that effort inward? How do you respond when life knocks you down? Do you see an obstacle or an invitation to grow stronger? The Stoics didn't just endure hardship, they welcomed it like a blacksmith welcomes fire. Seneca put it perfectly: difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. Think about that for a moment. Every setback, every rejection, every failure isn't a roadblock, but a chance to forge resilience. Take the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius. He ruled during a reign plagued by wars, betrayals, and even illness, yet he wrote in his private journal, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That's the Stoic pivot. Instead of resisting adversity, you use it as fuel. Now bring that into today's world. Imagine losing a job or missing out on a promotion. The instinct might be frustration, even despair, but what if you saw it as Seneca would: a forced pause to reassess, a nudge to build new skills, a test of your adaptability? The difference isn't in the event, it's in the lens you choose. So here's a challenge. Pick one struggle you're facing right now. Maybe it's a project that failed or a goal that feels out of reach. Ask yourself, how could this actually be preparing me for something greater? Because resilience isn't about avoiding the storm, it's about learning to dance in the rain. Stoicism emphasizes living in the present moment, not as some vague self-help mantra, but as a deliberate act of mental discipline. Marcus Aurelius put it plainly: confine yourself to the present. Why? Because anxiety thrives in the gap between now and an imagined future. Think about ambition. How often does the weight of long-term goals actually paralyze you rather than propel you? The Stoic approach flips that script. It's not about ignoring the future, but anchoring yourself in what you can do right now. Take a high-stakes work project, for example. Your mind might race with doubts. What if the result isn't perfect? What if clients reject it? But those thoughts don't improve your work, they scatter your focus. The Stoic remedy: zoom in, the sentence you're writing, the problem you're solving this hour. Even the Roman generals understood this. They wouldn't win wars by fretting over battles 10 years ahead. They won by mastering the terrain in front of them. So here's the question to sit with. How much of your day is spent mentally traveling to hypothetical futures instead of engaging with what's actually in front of you? Because presence isn't passive, it's the quiet power behind every meaningful step forward. What if the measure of your success wasn't the outcome at all, but the integrity of your effort? Stoicism flips the script on ambition by asking us to care deeply about our actions while remaining indifferent to results we can't control. Epictetus, the former slave-turned-philosopher, put it bluntly: make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. That's not resignation, it's liberation. Because when you tie your self-worth to external outcomes, you hand over your peace of mind to forces you'll never command. Consider a job interview. You can rehearse answers, research the company, even polish your shoes, but you can't force a hiring manager to choose you. Obsessing over the outcome burns mental energy without improving your performance. The Stoic alternative: pour everything into preparation, then release your grip. That detachment isn't apathy, it's the clarity to do your best without the weight of expectation. Think about your own life. Where are you clinging to results as if they define you? A project's reception, a number on a scale, a relationship's response. Now ask, what would change if you judged yourself solely by the effort you gave, not the outcome you got? That shift doesn't lower standards, it raises resilience. Because when you detach from what's beyond your control, you reclaim the power to keep moving forward regardless of the result. Self-discipline is the foundation of Stoic ambition, not as a harsh restriction, but as the ultimate act of self-respect. Seneca nailed it when he said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." That's the paradox of discipline. What feels like deprivation in the moment is actually liberation from the chaos of untamed desires. The Stoics didn't see self-control as punishment, they saw it as the path to true freedom. The kind that lets you choose your response instead of being ruled by impulses. Take the daily routine of a Roman senator like Cato, who began each morning with cold baths and rigorous study. It wasn't about masochism, it was training for life's bigger battles. Today, that might look like waking up 30 minutes earlier to meditate, exercise, or plan your day before distractions hijack your focus. Small, consistent acts like this build what psychologists call effortless effort, where discipline stops feeling like a struggle and starts feeling like second nature. So here's the challenge: pick one small habit that aligns with your bigger goals. Maybe it's writing 200 words daily, turning off notifications for deep work, or saying no to trivial yeses. The scale doesn't matter. What matters is proving to yourself that you're in command, because discipline isn't just about achieving goals, it's about becoming the kind of person who can. Why would anyone willingly seek discomfort when life already throws enough challenges our way? The Stoics had a counterintuitive answer: because temporary hardship is the training ground for unshakable resilience. Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly. What stands in the way becomes the way forward. Voluntary discomfort isn't about punishing yourself, it's about proving to your mind that you're stronger than your cravings for ease. Take marathon runners. They don't wait for perfect weather or ideal conditions to train. They wake up at dawn, lace their shoes, and push through fatigue precisely because it's hard. That's Stoicism in action, deliberately choosing difficulty to expand your capacity for life's inevitable struggles. The Roman philosopher Seneca practiced this by wearing rough clothing and sleeping on hard floors, not because he had to, but to remind himself comfort wasn't a requirement for peace. So here's the invitation. Where could you trade short-term ease for long-term strength? Maybe it's taking cold showers to master discomfort, fasting until noon to sharpen focus, or tackling your most dreaded task first. The goal isn't suffering, it's liberation. Every small act of voluntary discomfort rewires your relationship with adversity, teaching you that you can endure far more than you think. There's an unspoken assumption in modern ambition that success is measured by titles, wealth, or external validation, but the Stoics flipped that notion entirely. To them, real achievement wasn't about what you gained, but who you became in the process. Virtue, moral excellence wasn't just part of the equation, it was the equation. Seneca drove this home. A good character is the only guarantee of everlasting, carefree happiness. Not promotions, not applause, not even financial security. Because here's the truth, external wins are fleeting, but integrity, that's permanent. Consider a crossroads many face in business, cutting corners for short-term profit or choosing the harder, honest path. The Stoic ask isn't just pragmatic, it's philosophical. That moment of decision isn't about risk versus reward. It's about whether your ambition serves your character or corrupts it. History remembers Marcus Aurelius not for the Roman Empire's borders, but for the humility and justice he practiced while ruling them. So pause and reflect. Does your current pursuit of success align with the person you aspire to be? Are the sacrifices you're making ones you'd proudly defend? Virtue isn't a constraint on ambition, it's the compass. And when you let it guide you, something remarkable happens. Even the failures become victories because you haven't lost yourself in the process. What if the very thing you're afraid of failure was secretly your greatest ally? The Stoics didn't just tolerate setbacks, they welcomed them as the raw material for growth. Epictetus, who endured slavery before becoming one of history's most influential philosophers, put it plainly, it's not what happens to you, but how you respond that matters. Think about that for a moment. Failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of the curriculum. Take the story of a startup founder whose first venture collapsed. The easy narrative, I'm not cut out for this. But the Stoic response, what did this teach me about resilience, market gaps, or my own blind spots? That shift in perspective transforms failure from a dead end into a detour, one that often leads somewhere smarter and stronger than the original path. So let's bring this home. What's the risk you've been avoiding because you're afraid to fall short? A career change, a difficult conversation, putting your work out into the world. Now ask yourself, what's the cost of letting that fear make your decisions for you? Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the determination to act despite it. The Stoics knew that every time you face what scares you, you're not just moving toward your goals, you're rewiring your relationship with failure itself. Stoicism teaches us to let go of what we cannot change, not as resignation, but as a strategic reclamation of energy. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." That might sound abstract until you apply it to something like creative rejection. Picture a writer who spends months on a novel, only to face a stack of publisher rejections. The Stoic response, acknowledge the sting, then ask, does obsessing over this decision rewrite it? If the answer is no, and it always is, then every moment spent agonizing is a moment stolen from refining the work or pursuing the next opportunity. This isn't about suppressing emotion, it's about redirecting focus. Think of a tree shedding dead leaves to make room for new growth. Clinging to what's beyond your control, a critic's opinion, a missed promotion, a relationship that ended, doesn't alter reality. It just drains the energy you could invest in what can evolve, your craft, your resilience, your next step. So here's the invitation. What's one weight you're carrying that isn't yours to hold? A past mistake, someone else's expectations, the fantasy of a perfect outcome. Write it down, then ask yourself, if I accepted this as something I cannot change, what action would become possible? Letting go isn't defeat, it's the quiet courage to redirect your life toward what still thrives within your influence. When was the last time you paused to acknowledge how far you've come? In our relentless pursuit of what's next, we often overlook the ground we've already covered, yet the Stoics understood that gratitude isn't just a virtue, it's fuel for perseverance. Seneca observed, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." That's more than optimism, it's tactical. By training themselves to recognize small wins, Stoics built resilience against discouragement, turning progress into a renewable resource. Take the simple act of journaling, a habit Marcus Aurelius used not just to reflect on shortcomings, but to document strengths and lessons. Imagine ending each day noting 3 things you did well, no matter how modest, finishing a difficult task, resisting distraction, or even just choosing patience in frustration. Over time, this practice rewires your focus from what's lacking to what's growing. So here's a challenge. Before sleep tonight, name one concrete step you took toward your goals, even if it feels insignificant. Maybe you researched a skill, said no to procrastination, or simply showed up when you didn't feel like it. Because gratitude isn't just about feeling good, it's about recognizing that every effort stacked together becomes the foundation of mastery. Clear goals aren't just about direction, they're about liberation. The Stoics understood this deeply, advocating for intentions so sharp they cut through life's noise like a blade through parchment. Epictetus put it this way: first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. That's the essence of clarity, defining who you aspire to become before the world tells you who you should be. Without it, effort scatters, discipline falters, and distractions multiply. Take career growth as an example. Vague ambitions like "I want to be successful" or "I need a better job" lack the power to guide daily choices. But crystallize that into "I will master" data analysis within 6 months to transition into a strategic role, and suddenly, every hour spent studying or practicing carries weight. The Stoic approach isn't about rigid outcomes, it's about aligning actions with a purpose so vivid it pulls you forward. Here's the challenge for you. Look at the goals you're juggling right now. Are they precise enough that you'd know exactly what to do at 7 a.m. tomorrow, or are they still hazy, leaving room for procrastination to creep in? Because clarity isn't just about knowing where you're going, it's about recognizing every step that will get you there. How much of your ambition is actually yours, and how much is just the echo of what others expect from you? It's an uncomfortable question, but the Stoics weren't afraid to confront it head-on. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." That's the paradox of ambition. The more we chase external validation, the further we drift from the goals that would truly fulfill us. Think about the pressure to follow a safe career path versus pursuing what genuinely excites you. Society applauds titles and salaries, but Stoicism asks a different question. Does this path align with your values or just someone else's checklist? The philosopher Epictetus, born into slavery, knew this intimately. His freedom wasn't just physical, it was the refusal to let others define his worth. So here's the challenge. Take one ambition you're pursuing and strip away every external voice. If no one would praise or judge your choice, would it still matter to you? Because mastery isn't found in applause, it's found in the quiet confidence of knowing you're building a life that's authentically yours. Time is the one currency you can never earn back, yet how much of it slips through your fingers each day, lost to distractions or half-hearted efforts? The Stoics saw time differently, not as an infinite resource, but as finite sand in an hourglass demanding ruthless intentionality. Seneca captured this urgency when he wrote, "You live as if you were destined to live forever. You lose the day in waiting for the night, and the night in waiting for the day." That's the wake-up call we often ignore. Ambition isn't just about setting goals, it's about ruthlessly aligning your hours with them. Take the practice of memento mori, remembering that life is short. For a Stoic, this wasn't morbid, it was motivational. Picture two professionals with identical goals. One scrolls endlessly, telling themselves they'll start tomorrow. The other divides their day into focused blocks, learning a skill in the morning, networking at lunch, refining their craft in the evening. The difference isn't talent, it's the conscious choice to treat time as a non-renewable asset. So here's the challenge: look at your past week. How many of those hours were spent moving meaningfully toward what matters to you? And what one change could you make today to ensure the next week tells a different story? Because mastery isn't built in grand gestures, it's built in the quiet, deliberate moments most people squander without a second thought. What does it take to keep your mind sharp when exhaustion starts creeping in? Mental fatigue doesn't just drain your energy, it clouds judgment, weakens resolve, and makes even small obstacles feel impossible. The Stoics saw this as a critical battlefield. Epictetus, who trained students in resilience, put it bluntly: it's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. He wasn't just talking about laziness, he meant the mental surrender that happens when we let fatigue dictate our limits. Think about a time you faced a demanding project, maybe a tight deadline or a complex problem. Your first instinct might have been to seek distraction or procrastinate when the work grew tedious. But the Stoic approach flips that impulse. They practiced sustained attention, deliberately holding focus even when the mind begged for relief. Picture a Roman soldier on night watch, fighting the urge to drift off because vigilance meant survival. That same discipline applies today, pushing through the mental fog to finish a report, resisting the pull of social media during deep work, or simply staying present in a difficult conversation instead of checking out. Here's the key question for you: where does your mind tend to quit before your body actually needs to? Maybe it's abandoning a workout early because it feels hard, or skipping the final edit of a creative project when fatigue sets in. Try this Stoic exercise. Next time you hit that wall, pause and ask, is this truly my limit, or just my mind seeking comfort? Because mental toughness isn't about ignoring exhaustion, it's about recognizing when to rest and when to dig deeper. And that distinction changes everything. The Stoics didn't just move through life, they paused to examine it. Daily reflection wasn't optional for them, it was the cornerstone of growth. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, devoted pages of his personal journal to this practice, writing, "You must examine your life like a physician examines a patient, without judgment, but with relentless honesty." That's the power of stepping back. It turns experience into insight and effort into wisdom. Take the simple act of journaling, not as a diary of events, but as a mirror for your choices. Imagine ending each day with two questions. What did I do today that aligned with my purpose? And where did I act out of fear or habit instead of intention? No guilt, no excuses, just clarity. For the Stoics, this wasn't self-criticism, it was self-mastery. A trader in ancient Rome might review decisions to spot impulsive risks. Today, a founder could trace how distractions derailed productivity. The scale doesn't matter, the habit does. Here's why this works. Reflection creates space between instinct and action. When you consistently observe your patterns, say, procrastinating on hard tasks or reacting defensively to feedback, you're no longer ruled by them. You gain the chance to choose differently, so consider this. What's one lesson life has taught you recently that, if applied consistently, would change your trajectory? Because growth isn't just about accumulating knowledge, it's about turning those lessons into your next steps. Do you strive for perfection or progress? Here's the truth the Stoics understood centuries ago. Excellence isn't about flawless execution. It's about relentless refinement. Seneca put it bluntly, if you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid. That's not resignation, it's strategy, because when you demand perfection from every attempt, you trade momentum for paralysis, waiting for conditions that will never come. Take an artist agonizing over a painting, scraping away layers until the canvas wears thin. The Stoic approach: treat each stroke as an experiment, not a verdict. Every mistake teaches something a safe effort couldn't about technique, patience, or even the courage to start anew. History's most enduring works weren't born perfect. They were revised, reworked, and improved through stubborn iteration. Now turn that lens on your own ambitions. Where are you holding back because you're afraid to fumble? A project left unfinished, a skill you won't practice until you're ready. Try this shift. Replace "is this good enough" with "what did this teach me?" Imperfection isn't failure, it's the raw material of mastery. And the sooner you embrace it, the faster you'll outgrow the very limits you once feared. Consider the ocean, vast, powerful, unstoppable, yet made entirely of single drops. The Stoics saw human potential the same way. Not forged in grand, dramatic gestures, but in the quiet accumulation of daily choices. Epictetus, the philosopher who shaped minds from slavery to mastery, put it plainly: progress is not achieved by luck or accident, but by working on yourself daily. That's the secret so many miss. Transformational change doesn't demand Herculean effort all at once. It asks for something far more accessible: showing up again and again, even when the results seem invisible. Take the sculptor chiseling a block of marble. One strike alone does little, but persistent, focused blows reveal the masterpiece within. The same applies to mastering a language, building a business, or cultivating resilience. A 5-minute meditation today won't make you a Zen master, but stack 300 days of those minutes, and you've rewired your nervous system. The Stoics called this the discipline of the micro, the art of trusting the process when the payoff feels distant. So here's the challenge: identify one tiny, repeatable action that aligns with your biggest goal. Maybe it's writing one paragraph a day, studying for 15 uninterrupted minutes, or practicing a difficult conversation aloud while you shower. The scale doesn't matter, the consistency does, because small steps taken relentlessly don't just add up, they multiply. What's really stopping you from starting? Not the lack of time, resources, or perfect conditions, but the hesitation to act on what's already within your control. The Stoics saw procrastination as a silent thief of potential, one that steals not just hours but entire destinies. Marcus Aurelius put it in stark terms: don't wait for circumstances to line up, act where you stand with what you have. That's the antidote: treating every moment as if postponement were a form of self-betrayal. Think of a looming project, a business plan, a creative endeavor, or even a fitness goal. The weight of its scale can freeze you in place, but here's the Stoic workaround: slice it into small, immediate actions. Writing a book feels impossible until you commit to one paragraph. Marathon training starts with lacing your shoes. The Roman general Fabius didn't defeat Hannibal's army in a single battle. He chipped away at it through relentless, incremental steps. So here's the challenge staring you down. What's that one task you've circled around like a distant storm cloud? Not the whole project, just the next physical motion your body can make. Open the document, send the email, take the first literal step, because action isn't just momentum, it's a declaration to your own mind: I am stronger than my excuses. Success to a Stoic isn't measured by applause, wealth, or titles. It's found in the quiet certainty of inner peace. While the world chases external validation, Stoicism asks a radical question. What if real achievement had nothing to do with what you acquire and everything to do with who you become? Seneca put it plainly, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. That inversion changes everything, because when success is tied to virtue, integrity, courage, self-discipline, it becomes unshakable. No market crash can bankrupt it. No critic can diminish it. Take two professionals. One climbs the corporate ladder fueled by envy and insecurity, while the other finds deep fulfillment in mentoring others or perfecting a craft. The Stoic wouldn't judge their titles or salaries. They'd ask which life reflects alignment with purpose. Even in ancient Rome, the philosopher Musonius Rufus taught that a farmer living with integrity was richer than a conflicted emperor. So pause and reflect. When you strip away societal expectations, what does success truly look like to you? Is it the freedom to choose how you spend your days, the pride of work done well regardless of recognition, or simply the ability to meet each challenge with clarity and grit? Because the Stoic secret isn't about reaching the top, it's about knowing the climb itself can be the reward if you define the terms. When life throws you a curveball, do you resist or adjust your stance? Adaptability wasn't just a survival skill for the Stoics, it was a philosophy in motion. Epictetus, who knew hardship firsthand, offered this razor-sharp insight. It's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters. Think about that for a moment. The obstacle isn't the change itself, it's the rigidity that makes it feel insurmountable. History brims with examples, from merchants in ancient Rome pivoting trade routes after storms to modern professionals reinventing skills after industry disruptions. The Stoic approach sees every shift as neutral until you assign it meaning. A job loss could spell disaster or become the push needed to launch that side hustle. An economic downturn might limit opportunities or force sharper focus on what truly matters. Here's the real question for you. Where in your life are you clinging to plan when the alphabet has 25 other letters? Adaptability isn't about lowering standards, it's about expanding your playbook. Next time change arrives uninvited, try this, pause, then ask, what's one small adjustment that could turn this into an advantage? Because flexibility isn't weakness, it's the quiet strength of those who refuse to be outmaneuvered by circumstance. Stoics valued the support of like-minded individuals, not as a luxury but as essential fuel for growth. Marcus Aurelius, despite his solitary reputation, wrote, "We are born for cooperation, as feet are for walking, hands for grasping." That's the paradox of ambition. Even the most self-disciplined path isn't meant to be walked alone. Think about it, every Roman philosopher, from Seneca to Epictetus, had mentors, students, and peers who sharpened their thinking. Isolation might feel heroic, but stagnation often follows. Consider the power of a professional network. An aspiring writer joining a critique group doesn't just gain feedback, they inherit deadlines, accountability, and the contagious energy of others creating beside them. The Stoic approach here is deliberate. Choose companions who reflect the standards you aspire to, because your environment will either elevate or erode your resolve. Now turn that lens inward. Who in your orbit actively champions your growth? Not just those who cheer from the sidelines, but the ones who ask tough questions, share hard-won wisdom, or simply model the discipline you're striving for. Because ambition thrives in the company of those who remind you, through word and action, what you're capable of. How does criticism land on you, like a gut punch or a gold mine? The Stoics had a radical perspective. Every piece of feedback, even the harsh kind, was a tool for sharpening their character. Seneca put it bluntly, if someone tells you that you're wrong, don't just reject it, excavate it. That's the mindset shift. Criticism isn't about your worth, it's about your growth. Take a creative professional receiving notes on their work. The instinct might be defensiveness, they just don't get my vision. But the Stoic pause asks, what if one of these points reveals a blind spot? History remembers Marcus Aurelius not for being infallible, but for his habit of writing down critique. From his tutors to study later, he didn't worship opinion. He weaponized it. Here's the practical lens. Next time criticism stings, try separating the delivery from the data. Maybe the tone was unkind, but is there a grain of truth to refine your approach? A project, a relationship, even your daily habits, could they withstand a little honest scrutiny? Because the goal isn't to please critics, it's to outgrow the person who needed their approval in the first place. The Stoics held a seemingly contradictory truth. You could chase greatness and cultivate peace at the same time, not by sacrificing one for the other, but by redefining what ambition actually means. Epictetus cut to the heart of it. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. That's the equilibrium, pursuing goals without letting them dictate your worth or steal your present moment clarity. Consider someone grinding for a promotion. The modern trap is tying happiness to the outcome. I'll finally relax when I get that title. But Stoic ambition works differently. It's about pouring excellence into the work itself, preparing thoroughly, leading with integrity, while holding the result lightly. The promotion might come or not, but your self-respect and calm remain intact either way. Here's the subtle shift that changes everything. Ambition becomes toxic when it's a demand, I must achieve this to be happy, but liberating when it's an offering, I'll give my best whatever happens. So ask yourself, where in your life have you postponed contentment, assuming it waits on the other side of success? What if you didn't have to choose between striving and thriving, but could do both right now? How often do you actually see yourself succeeding before taking the first step? The Stoics didn't just stumble through challenges, they rehearsed them in their minds long before facing reality. Marcus Aurelius wrote, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, not to dwell on negativity, but to strip away surprise and prepare his response. This is proactive visualization, immersing yourself in potential difficulties so when they arrive, you meet them with calm readiness. Take public speaking, a fear that paralyzes even seasoned professionals. The Stoic approach, long before stepping on stage, you'd mentally walk through every detail, the rustle of papers, the stare of the audience, even the dryness in your throat. By confronting these sensations in advance, you drain their power to derail you. Modern psychology confirms this. Athletes visualize races to prime their nervous systems. Surgeons mentally rehearse procedures to enhance precision. Here's your turn. Pick one ambition you're working toward, a career move, a fitness goal, a creative project. Close your eyes and play the tape forward. What obstacles might arise? How would your calmest, most capable self navigate them? Because visualization isn't wishful thinking, it's training your mind to recognize the path before your feet even touch it. While modern hustle culture screams move faster, the Stoics whispered something far more revolutionary. True ambition often requires the courage to slow down. Seneca captured this perfectly when he wrote, "Time heals what reason cannot." That's the paradox of patience. What feels like waiting is often the quiet work of preparation. Think of a farmer planting seeds. No amount of tugging at the sprouts will make them grow faster, but tending the soil, that changes everything. Now apply that to your own goals. Maybe it's waiting for a promotion that requires more experience, or building a side business before it generates real income. Impatience here isn't just frustration, it's self-sabotage. The Stoic approach, focus on the process. You control, sharpening skills, expanding networks, refining your craft, while trusting the timeline to unfold. History's greatest innovations, from Darwin's theories to Mandela's leadership, weren't overnight triumphs. They were the result of stubborn consistency meeting strategic patience. So here's the question to sit with. Where are you rushing an outcome instead of mastering the steps that lead there? Because patience isn't passive waiting. It's the disciplined art of working with time, not against it. Here's something that might surprise you. Stoics didn't see competition as a battle against others, but as a dialogue with their former selves. Epictetus put it perfectly. It's better to trip today than to stumble tomorrow, if it means you learn how to walk more firmly. That's the essence of the Stoic approach, turning rivalry inward where growth actually lives. Think about professional athletes. The greatest ones aren't obsessed with opponents. They're fixated on shaving milliseconds off their personal bests, refining techniques only they can measure. Take a musician mastering an instrument. The Stoic wouldn't waste energy envying another player's skill. They'd ask, how can today's practice make me better than I was yesterday? That subtle shift transforms competition from a draining zero-sum game into an endless well of motivation. Because when you're benchmarking against your own potential, there's always room to rise higher. So here's the pivot worth making. Where in your life have you been measuring yourself against someone else's yardstick? A colleague's promotion, a peer's social media highlight reel. Try this instead. Set one small, personal standard only you care about. Maybe it's delivering a project with more attention to detail than last time, or finally tackling that skill you've avoided. True competition isn't about outrunning others, it's about outgrowing who you used to be. Stoicism might champion discipline, but the sharpest minds in history knew this truth. Relentless effort without recovery is like sprinting a marathon. You'll collapse before the finish line. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor who governed an empire, wrote in his private journal, "You must take breaks, even the bow unstrings to preserve its power." That's the paradox of ambition. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do is pause. Think of an archer in ancient Rome. Pull the bowstring taut for too long and it snaps, but release it between shots, the arrow flies farther with less strain. Modern neuroscience confirms this. Our brains solve complex problems not in the grind, but in the gaps. A study break, a walk, even a night of deep sleep can spark insights hours of forced effort couldn't. The Stoics didn't see rest as laziness, they saw it as strategic recalibration. So consider this: where in your routine have you mistaken motion for progress? Are you sacrificing sleep for hustle, skipping meals to save time, or powering through fatigue like a badge of honor? Here's the harder question: what small act of restoration, a 20-minute nap, an unplugged hour in nature, a real lunch break, could actually make your effort more potent? Because true stamina isn't about ignoring limits, it's about respecting them so you can go further, longer. What truly defines the mark we leave on the world? The Stoics had a radical answer. Legacy isn't measured in monuments or accolades, but in the quiet ripples of our character. Seneca put it bluntly: a good person shines like a torch, lighting the way for others long after they're gone. That's the shift in perspective, from chasing recognition to cultivating virtue that outlives you. Consider the difference between two leaders, one obsessed with building a personal brand, the other quietly investing in mentoring their team. Decades later, who's remembered? Not the figurehead who demanded applause, but the guide who sparked potential in others. The Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't write their names in stone, they etched wisdom into the minds of students, knowing ideas travel farther than statues. Now turn that lens on your own life. How much of your ambition is fueled by external validation versus lasting contribution? Maybe it's not about scaling some imagined ladder, but about who you lift alongside you. A conversation that shifts someone's perspective, a project that solves problems beyond your own. Even small acts of integrity compound over time into something far greater than fleeting fame. So here's the question to sit with today. If your legacy weren't tied to titles or tributes but to the lives you've quietly improved, would you rethink how you're spending your time and energy right now? Because the Stoic secret isn't about being remembered, it's about being worth remembering. Stoics saw humility not as weakness, but as the quiet strength that keeps ambition from tipping into self-destruction. Epictetus warned, the greater the height, the more dangerous the fall, and nothing brings a man down faster than his own inflated ego. That's the paradox they understood. True growth happens when we approach every achievement as a beginning rather than a finale. Picture an athlete after their first championship win. The Stoic response wouldn't be basking in praise, it would be dissecting game footage for flaws, seeking tougher competitors, remembering that today's victory is tomorrow's baseline. History's most enduring innovators shared this trait. Nobel laureates who kept lab notebooks full of unanswered questions, founders who celebrated milestones by asking what's next before the applause faded. But here's where humility transforms ambition. It shifts the focus from proving yourself to improving yourself. When you stop seeing success as a pedestal to stand on and start treating it as a stepping stone, you unlock something rare, the ability to learn from anyone, anytime. The junior employee's feedback might reveal blind spots. A failed project could teach more than a dozen wins. So consider this: what recent achievement have you been clinging to as proof of your worth? And what might open up if you saw it simply as data, one point on a much longer curve? Because the Stoic path isn't about denying your strengths, it's about wielding them with the wisdom to know they're never finished growing. We've journeyed through the heart of Stoicism, not as ancient theory, but as a living blueprint for shattering limitations and reclaiming your power. At its core, this philosophy arms you with three unshakable tools: resilience to face setbacks without breaking, focus to cut through distraction, and self-discipline to act when motivation falters. These aren't just ideals, they're choices. Every time you channel discomfort into growth, prioritize what matters over what screams loudest, or refuse to let excuses dictate your effort, you're embodying the Stoic way. Marcus Aurelius left us with a compass for this very path. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. That's the ultimate takeaway. Your ambitions aren't held back by circumstances, they're fueled or stalled by how you interpret those circumstances. A rejection isn't a door slamming shut, it's a redirection. A crowded schedule isn't chaos, it's a test of prioritization. The difference between stagnation and breakthrough lies in the mental frameworks you choose to wield. Now it's your turn. Look back at one challenge you're facing: personal, professional, creative. How might these Stoic principles shift your approach? What small, deliberate step could you take today, not just toward your goals, but toward becoming the kind of person who achieves them? Drop a comment below sharing your insight, or if you found this valuable, hit subscribe, because the journey doesn't end here. Every day is another chance to refine your mindset, sharpen your focus, and build a life of quiet, unshakable mastery. Let's keep growing together.